those from those Southern Thinkers, it's LB's podcast. My name is Craig, transmitted from beautiful Swampy Man, South Florida, and today's date, Sunday, September 9th, 2018. So let us begin. Thanks for tuning in, my friends. It's raining right now in the heart of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm at Squiggy's New York style pizzeria located at 207 Himmershey Drive in the heart of the Himmershey district of Fort Lauderdale. Mom and pop facility. Check it out. Give a little love. Don't worry about the big corporate chains. They need us more than we need them. Yeah, so I felt really good last night on the last episode I done on 9/11. Got a lot of energy out, even though I ranted a little bit. And that's all well and good. Hopefully, my brothers and sisters out in the Carolina coastline and Virginia be hunkered down, be ready for Florence, which can become a major hurricane. And it's very interesting. I was like looking at some of the patterns earlier today from Hurricane Track, which they have a YouTube account. Guy's really good. He doesn't go around putting the fear, but he wants to be aware and lay down all the facts from the National Hurricane Center. So always check him out and always enjoy his work. So what I'm going to be discussing mainly here is in reference to what's been happening with the children who are suffering from sexual abuse from the Catholic priests and all that. And so it's actually be two parts called Children Suffer Under a Silent Church. And I checked the latest one, or the part 2, but I'm going to read part 1 as well. And this was from Pastor Roger Anghist from newsreviews.com. Hey, you should just always observe these other sites because they try to use commentary with a lot of merit. That's why I always try to content I want to use for my show, and hopefully a lot of folks out there appreciate it. And thank you for giving me a thumbs up and all that from the other alternative social media sites. All right, so let's begin here. Children suffer under a silent church. As it reads, we are seeing a disgusting development being exposed from the church in the church today. Many denominations have begun to cave to pressure from the LGBT community to embrace the homosexual lifestyle that includes transgender people. Of any organization that should never embrace these lifestyles, the church should lead the list. Never at any time has the scripture lead us to believe that we are to do so, ever. All references to this perverted lifestyle in scripture states that it's against God's principles. One thing we must remember is that God never changes. What he did 4,000 years ago, he does today. We are told in Malachi 3:6, "For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed." So if he told us in Leviticus 18:22, "Thou shalt not lie with mankind, as with womankind, it is an abomination," then that command is still the same today. But we are seeing Lutherans, Methodists, Episcopalians embrace this evil against God's law, and even the Southern Baptist Convention this year could not end up with the votes to denounce gay therapy bans. A Southern Baptist Convention resolution that denounced gay conversion therapy bans and the homosexual identity politics failed to go through at the denomination's annual meeting. Robert O. Lopez, a professor at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, who submitted the resolution to explain to the Christian Post what happened. The resolution was declined in committee and never came up for a vote. Attempts to revive it from the floor failed when time was called, said Lopez. The SBC Committee on Resolutions explained why the measure didn't go through. While the committee believes that the Southern Baptist Convention messengers would agree that ministries seeking to provide biblical counsel to those with same-sex attraction is needed as evident by over 24 resolutions addressing homosexuality over the last 40 years, as well as Article 15 of the Baptist Faith and Message. The committee concluded that there are many related issues of import to clarify in this resolution that were beyond the committee's ability to address at this meeting. Back in 2006, the American Baptist Church's Pacific Southwest split from the American Baptist USA because of homosexuality. Theological differences between the Pacific and Southwest region and the national denomination have made close cooperation between the two difficult for many years. According to the statement from abroad, many of the denomination's self-governed regions, such as the Evergreen Association of Washington and the Rochester Genesee region in New York, openly accept churches disassociated from the regions because they accept unrepentant homosexuals as members. The denomination general board has refused to discipline the regions who accept such churches, citing Baptist freedom and local churches' autonomy as reasons. The Pacific Southwest region may not be the last region to break with the 1.5 million member parent denomination. American Baptists of West Virginia narrowly rejected a proposal to withdraw from the ABC at their meeting last year. The Indiana Kentucky region has also proposed a change in the denomination's bylaws that will not allow churches to transfer to another region when removed over the issue of homosexuality. Homosexuality-friendly regions oppose the new bylaw and have petitioned to reject the proposed change. I've had a hard time understanding how any member of any Christian denomination, especially those that are in a position of authority in those organizations, can even think about embracing anything that God has called an abomination. They claim that God loves everybody, and I believe that, but God is not in covenant with everybody. As a born-again Christian, you are in covenant with God, and He is covenant with you. Just because you sit in a pew doesn't mean that God is covenant with you. No. I have to clarify that I don't think that a homosexual should be banned from the church because the church is the only place that he or she will hear the truth about who our relationships are to be with. But never under any circumstances should someone that is active in this perverted lifestyle be placed in any position of authority in the church. Scripture tells us in Exodus 18, verse 21, "Moreover, thou shalt provide out all of people able, men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens." Notice that it is men that fear God that we are placed in positions of authority. This actually means men that submitted to God's laws and principles. Practicing homosexual transgender operates out of God's law and principles. When that happens, we see the church go down a path that takes away from God. So it's more like a preservation, safeguarding on principles. So, and just to let you folks know, it's not trying to be a preacher to anyone here, but every institution is different. They go by these guidelines, and that's it. I'm not telling people how to live or think, but giving you his interpretation. I'll continue on here. I bring up all this to point out a couple of articles that have popped up over the last month. The first one involved a subject that has plagued the Catholic Church for decades and many even millennia. Molestation of children by priests. In the state of Pennsylvania, it was just released that there were more than 300 priests accused of being predator priests. Did you catch that? 300. More than 1,000 child victims have been identified from the church's own records. Is there any excuse for this behavior in the church? Absolutely not. There is no excuse for it in any environment, but the church is totally inexcusable. The worst part is there was nothing done to these so-called priests for their behavior. One priest, after years of child abuse complaints, quit and had the gall to ask a reference for his next job at Disney World and got it. The story is about as disgusting as it gets. A ring of predatory priests that allegedly manufactured child pornography on diocese property and used whips, violence, and sadism on their victims. The same group of priests gave boys they favored gold cross necklaces which report states were a signal to other predators that the children were optimal target for further victimization. One priest allegedly abused 5 sisters in a single family despite prior abuse reports that were never acted on. The priest collected samples of the girls' urine, pubic hair, and menstrual blood, according to the report. Lack of discipline for a priest who admitted to abuse, a priest who confessed to raping at least 15 boys and some as young as 7. A bishop later said that the priest was a person of candor and sincerity, and complimented him for the progress he has made controlling his addiction. How can we expect our kids to respect a man of God when the so-called man of God is molesting them? How can the child ever put their faith in a God that allows that to happen? We all know that is nothing that God approves of, and that it was the priest that violates God's law. But a 7-year-old can't process that. And as I stated, the Catholic Church has had this problem for millennia and has not corrected that problem. One of the things I see the problem is that priests cannot marry, and there is no real biblical basis for it. Paul did say that if you stay single without sin, stay single, but if not, marry. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 7. For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man's hath his proper gift of God, one after this matter and another after that. And 8 says here, I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it's good for them if they abide even as I. And 9, but if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. Yes, Paul was single, but he was married at one time. Before his conversion, he was a Pharisee, and to be a Pharisee, you have to be married. The Catholic Church feels that you shouldn't marry as a priest, but that was not only Paul's opinion. He went on to say in 1 Corinthians 7, verse 28, but if thou marry, thou hast not sinned, and if a virgin marry, she hath not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. The molestations of the girls in the Catholic Church, I believe, are because of the Church's stance on a priest remaining single. This is not human nature. Some can, but most can't and shouldn't remain single. The violation of the boys is a completely different matter. That is a demonic spirit that causes an adult male to molest a young male, which we will discuss in the next installment. And this is, like I said, in this area, personal responsibility. Everyone has obligation. You cannot force certain institutions, based on the laws they believe in, to change them because how they feel. On a consensual basis, homosexuality, etc. And I'm not here to condemn, because I know I'm in the industry, okay? So I associate with all walks of life, as long as they don't violate others. And that's how I look at it. But when it comes to this, molestation, violating other spaces, even young as 7, I condemn it with a passion. I'm not the only one. There's a big division right now going on with these churches. And I recommend even the Catholic Church better start reading once again, a la what Apostle Paul has to say about it. Let them be fruitful too, including the priest. And if they want to step down and have a family, so be it. but it's plain wrong when you violate others. That's when it gets me the most. And this is just an example. There are cases from other organizations as well. You just look it up, and you'll be surprised. I want to get one here, part 2 of it, which came out today. And it reads here, we are looking at the state of the mind the church is operating under, and we are seeing that far too many of those in authority in the church have set God's precepts and laws aside. They may espouse one thing in public, but in private they are no more a man of God than monkey is. Last week we are looking for a horrific report from the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania where 300 priests molested over 1,000 children. What I have to question is, this is Pennsylvania. What about the other 49 states in the dossiers around the world? How can an organization that's supposed to represent God do this to children and then not report these predators to law enforcement? This means that there are not just the perpetrator is guilty, but the powers that allow it to continue are just as guilty. We could say conspirators. It was not only the Pennsylvania officials that did systematic cover-up of their atrocities, but the Vatican did the same. Both did this cover-up for decades. Where is the character of these people? Where is the conscience of these people? The report said that abuse complaints were kept in the church's so-called secret archive, and church officials worked to hide incidents, failed to discipline priests or report the allegations to law enforcement. Priests were raping little boys and girls, and the men of God who were responsible for them not only did nothing, they hid it all, the report said. Shapiro said the report showed a systematic cover-up by a senior church official in Pennsylvania and at the Vatican. The abuse scared every dossier. Or deal the dossier? No, not dossier. Excuse me. I've been mispronouncing it. Diocese. Excuse me. Cover-up was sophisticated, he said. The victims of the alleged abuse gave emotional testimony in a short video played before the news conference. It doesn't ever go away. It has an effect on you for the rest of your life, said Sean Dockery, 48, adding, this has absolutely destroyed me. The adults in this church act like members of Congress. Congress set up a taxpayer-funded payoff scheme to silence the people they were having affairs with. Pay them off and keep it quiet. But in this case, their actions destroyed the lives of thousands of innocent children that they were supposed to protect. I believe that this may just be the beginning. It may be just the beginning of what we will learn about these predators. Prosecutors said a hotline set up to get information on child sexual abuse by clergy within Pennsylvania's Roman Catholic diocese has received more than 400 calls over the past 6 days. A spokesman for the Attorney General's office said Monday agents are returning all calls and accessing the facts. Spokesman Joe Grace says the agents will have to consult with the office lawyers to determine whether any claim warrant investigation. Church officials have stressed that many of the allegations in the nearly 900-page clergy abuse report made public last week go back decades and that changes have been made. Grace says his office can't describe or categorize the information that's coming in, including whether they involve more recent allegations. This idiocy of the situation is compounded by the comment that the statute of limitation has run out on many of these decades-old allegations. Just how the statute of limitations expire when a child has been molested. Not only were the priests doing these heinous deeds, there is a group of nuns in Scotland doing the same thing. 12 people, 11 women and 1 man, ages ranging from 62 to 85 years, have been arrested and charged in connection for non-recent abuse of children. All are subject of reports to the Crown Office and Prosecutor Fiscal. A further 4 individuals will report today. Inquiries are continuing. It would be inappropriate to comment further, a spokesperson from the Police Scotland, the National Police Force of Scotland, said, according to The Guardian. Nuns and lay staff who worked at the orphanage allegedly humiliated children for bewedding, did not feed them, repeatedly beat them, and verbally and sexually abused them, according to those who lived there. The order is deeply troubled by each of these failings. As daughter of charity, our values are totally against any form of abuse, and thus we offer our most sincere and heartfelt apology to anyone who suffered under any form of abuse in our care. Gregor Rolfe, a lawyer for the Daughters of Charity, told Lady Smith, a High Court judge and chair of Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry last year, reported The Guardian. Before I could get this article written, it was reported that the diocese in Chicago has come under investigation for possible ties to the diocese in Pennsylvania. On Thursday, Illinois Attorney General Lisa Madigan announced she planned to meet with Chicago Archdiocese after at least 7 priests with connections to Illinois were identified in the Pennsylvania grand jury report. The Catholic Church has a moral obligation to provide its parishioners and the public a complete and accurate accounting of all sexually inappropriate behavior involving priests in Illinois, Madigan said in the statement. The Chicago Archdiocese has agreed to meet, Madigan said. I plan to reach out to the other dioceses in Illinois and have the same conversation and expect that bishops will agree and fully cooperate fully, she added. If not, I will work with state attorneys and law enforcement throughout Illinois to investigate. Jesus said in Matthew 19:14, let the little children come to him. Men of God are his representatives on this planet, and the authorities of the so-called church allow this to not just occur, but to continue. And they covered it up. Concerning Archbishop Carlo Maria Vagano, who Pope Benedict placed canonical sanctions on, Pope Francis repealed them. Then a report came out saying Pope Francis and other senior prelates were covering for another archbishop of sexual abuse. What you're about to read is an explosive territory of the former apostolic nuncio to the United States, implicating Pope Francis and several senior prelates in covering up Archbishop Theodore McCarrick's alleged sexual abuses on Sumerians and priests. In an extraordinary 11-page written statement, see official text, English text below, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vagano, 77, claimed that Pope Francis knew about the strict canonical sanctions imposed on McCarrick by Pope Benedict XVI, but chose to repeal them. In his testimony dated August 22nd, Archbishop Vagano, who served as an apostolic nuncio in Washington, D.C. from 2011 to 2016, states that in the late 2000s, Benedict has imposed on Cardinal McCarrick sanctions similar for those now imposed on him by Pope Francis, and that Vagano personally spoke with Francis about the gravity of McCarrick's abuse soon after his election in 2013. But he says that Francis continued to cover him, and not only did he not take into account the sanctions that Pope Benedict had imposed on him, he also made McCarrick his trusted counselor who helped him to appoint a number of bishops in the United States, including Cardinal Blaise Cupich of Chicago and Joseph Tobin of Newark. This is not the actions of the church that's a true representative of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is a slap in the face to the faithful followers and a total disgrace to the roots of this church. The disturbing thing is, it is the children that suffer the worst. Next week, we'll look at the disgrace at the Protestant side of Christianity. Interesting there. I might have to look that up when the time comes, and I'll share it with everyone here. This is one of the most disturbing things, my friends. Corruption at its finest. What you're hearing about the Roman Catholic Church is just an example. How tyranny is being superseded by the Word of God. Blasphemy to its finest. At its finest. And I'm not here to go Catholic bashing or anything like that, or going anti-Christian or so forth. Because you all have a lot of wolves in sheep clothing. Claim they're this, but they're the strong dark side. Even there are cases from the Watchtower Tract Society, also known as Jehovah's Witnesses. Same thing with the Church of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. Talk about the Protestants, and so forth. Every institution, entity, and or movement, you have to expect rogue elements. Nothing new at all. But now everything's being exposed. A lot of these individuals become stripped naked. Looks like these big organized churches may just collapse one day. There's Nostradamus their prediction on that. About the fall of the Catholic Church. I'm not saying it's true, but always prepare for that. This is why, when you have this particular creed, you have to be real, authentic, and honorable. If not, it will blow back in your face, or at least expect it. If anyone out there are under this particular group, or movement, or institution, and you're very corrupt, you'll be declaring yourself that I'm gonna curse. I'm gonna get cursed. In other words, you're gonna be cursing yourself. Corruption doesn't pay. It blows back in your face when you least expect it. One way or the other. That's how I see things. And even the Anton LaVey's book, The Satanic Bible, talks about this as well. It's a no-no. It's condemned. Like it or not, it's in the book. All you gotta say, read it. Doesn't mean you can join them, but you can just read it. All right, that is enough on those in that area. Okay, do one more here. Do it short today. This came from Covert Politics. It says here, genes and human nature are not the cause of world chaos. As it reads here, there is a popular explanation for world chaos now upon us, and many scientists and philosophers advocate it. The form of argument is that the rising global crisis we face trace back to human nature and genes to explain it. Now, the widespread scientific category of anthropocents to locate the global crisis expresses the same idea and manages the same diversion from the common cause. In fact, none can remotely explain the ongoing global system collapse, nor the extreme climate destabilization, which is the major known symptom of it. On the front's planetary life crisis confined to a much more specific causal mechanism. The cumulative, mounting, and unregulated assaults of the private industrial destruction, pollution, exhaustion, consumer waste in one relatively short span of the Anthro era. But the human nature, aka genetic argument, obscures this fundamental fact. It does not come from stupid people, but it is a stupid explanation. The ancient fallacy of human nature to explain life-blind institutions. More exactly, it is enduring preconception has been a dominant from ancient times, has been often disproved, but its return expresses in another way the instituted life-blindness of the neo-capitalist era. As this dangerous juncture of human evolution in history is one more ideological mind-lock to derail examination of the social structural problem. We need to bear in mind that the same human nature argument was long in place to explain slavery as a natural phenomenon. Socrates, Plato, and more trenchantly Aristotle all conceived slavery as natural to human beings and so unchangeable. They were very intelligent men, but assumed that this is a given fact of the human condition. Sounds like the mind is right. Since the first study, these philosophers I have observed the argument repairing in evil times of black people's understanding of the actual social structural cause of solvable problems. For example, the acceptance of both war and slavery over millennia has been based on the human nature argument. It is natural for some to rule and others to serve them, and war decides which group is more fit to rule. In fact, both institutions are not at all expressions of human nature, but pervasively enforced totalitarian institutions of mass murder and enslavement in particular social formations, which serve the rich, non-working minority ruling them. Capitalism is not natural or gene-determined. Money sequences capitalism is a historical extension of these institutions which still rules. It is different is that a deregulated and hyper-aggressive financialized form has brought mass killing trends, which has been one way pathogenic since the Reagan-Thatcher turn against life-protective public law and nonpartisan government. It still rampages on today, but the long-ignored cumulative damages have caught up. Planetary life organization is paying the price in degeneration and collapse at every level while still further enriching those leading the global catastrophe. The World Bank, my friends, right? They have dark reasons to select for and quietly fund the argument of genes, human nature, and anthropocentric as the reason for the mounting chaos. Yes, this is critically insane rule and absurdly a tribute to human nature and genes by even those not benefiting from it. After all, far more numerous victims are human nature, too, with human genes in the anthropocents, and only a minority agree with the policies and ever more abhor the leaders and system they steer, which together produce such inhuman character and echo genocidal misrule. Yet, still, you have the most eminent thinkers, even the inventor of ecological footprint, argue that our current ecocidal system is based on a genetic character formed in our distant past. He thinks it is indicated by the massive disappearance of large animals by human hand, but this has since been expertly attributed to selection by altered environmental conditions. The gene argument is very appealing, however, for its simplification into one cause outcome. This is a theoretical essence of social biology in general. It has been dominant in the academy and the legacy media as a seemingly scientific rationalization of a clear social disorder. Yet, as long as a cover story lasts, the rising crisis of life, blind, private, money, rule, destroying the shared planetary and life grow need not to be faced or solved. Yes, so it's a genetic thing. It's funny about this because even in the movies in the 20s on eugenics, like this woman's father was a violent criminal and all that, and they expect the kid to be the same way as they're doing a forced abortion, like eugenics court. You should look that up about eugenics courts in the 20s. It's very interesting here, you know. The solution of nicer people. One of the enfeebling consequences of human nature gene diversion from the reigning system disorder is that it puts the onus on individual human beings to solve the problem by being nicer to and kinder to each other. It certainly sounds good, yet it tracks switches critical attention from the lifeline corporate market disorder to the personalities of individuals who have normally have such a little or nothing to do with it and are usually victims of the systematic scrapping of public institutions, life protective regulations, and income bases. Indeed, this system disorder has been invaded by many levels of society evolution and citizen life insecurity, has been normalized in all phases of work, environment, and future. However nice we are to each other as individuals, for which I, for one, love. Yet it is not individual choices that are responsible for the system oppressing the majority's livelihoods, their life conditions, and their futures, including that their children. To focus on them is an implicit form of blaming the victim. Their being nicer people is essentially beside the point of the problem. In logical terms, this fallacy of division is falsely infers from the properties of a collective entity the properties of the individuals members of it, thereby making them responsible for its getting worse or better. We're all responsible, each and every one of us, for this human crisis. Is a boring, choral expression of this fallacy, because it makes those saying this seem so. Well, nice and kind. They can bask their virtuous self-reflection. Those, in fact, leading the crisis as its planners and executives, with obscenely high financial payoffs and privileges for doing so, are meanwhile left blameless and off the hook. The Keo Bono question, who benefits and profits from this life-insane system, is nullified a priori. Those who argue this way are not so nice as they seem. They present as good people to others, ingratiate themselves to those in control, and avoid having to face the real problem. This is all certainly easier and safer. In fact, it may bring top-down favor to the pacifiers and their peace activism for sidetracking from the real evil and its lead agents. Cover-up culture of the homicidal system. Yeah, before I continue, you hear that, right? Nice people, fingers crossed, stab you in the back. Sounds like mass jackals to me, right? The cover-up culture of the homicidal system. Self-centering importance of the homicidal system also lies in perfect line with the atomic agency metaphysics of free market choice. It is the individual consumer who chooses the system. Again, we revert to the individual human character as responsible for the system disorder, although in fact the consumer's desire are operantly conditioned into preferences. Why far more money is spent on a pervasive advertisement than on research or health? The conditions of production are ruled out of trade regulations and rights. Why race to the bottom worker and environmental standard occurs, and almost consumer or citizen remotely chooses that societies must complete to lower taxes to the rich, abolish public scrutiny and enforcement of environment and consumer hazard, and have their elected representatives decided by invisible corporate lobbies and money manipulators. Human nature, genes, consumer choice, the cover-up culture has many levels. All this argument forms analyze above share one feature. They locate responsibility in individual agency. This is a dominant metaphysics of Western civilization, and why we have such a problem today recognizing the collective system derangement. Of course, right? I have to, can't argue with that. It's just pretty bizarre, to be exact. One moment here, I'm gonna do something, do a little click here. Okay, good. In fact, we continuously misled from understanding and knowing the collective causal mechanism of the great disorder as a central function of it. Exactly, on that one. To divert blame, responsibility, and social action from the inherited but cumulatively pathological misrule from top, which threatens life on Earth itself. The only diagnostic model fits all of the depredatory phenomenon across organic, social, and ecological life hosts. It is not human nature or genes or the anthroposins, or two few nice kind individuals or consumer choice. The true causal mechanism of all one-way degenerate trends of this cumulative homicidal disorder is a highly invasive private financial cancer metastasizing across societies and global life organizations. This text of this article has been drawn from an online debate at Science for Peace, Department of Physics, University of Toronto, by Professor John Murtry. Interesting, I'll have to say. Always got to look at these areas a lot more. But one thing we know for sure, this is like what the order does. Oh, belly up. If they say bend over, they want to say how far, please. It reminds me of that movie Metropolis. People going wearing the same outfit, same uniforms, marching together in two lines, heads down. One shift is out, the other shift is in when the doors open up. That's how they want us to be. But we can counter that. We don't need these individuals in our lives. And all the garbage you see in the media, divide and rule. Look at these clowns out there, claim to be political geniuses, have an IQ of turnips. I think that's why I start laughing at these people. When I hear their, I just start laughing at them. Because the truth of the matter is, my friends, we all have natural rights. It has to be fully implemented at the best of our ability. That's my recommendation to everyone out there. They need us more than we need them. Without the people, they're done. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share it through social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something that's interesting you may want to check out, whatever you do, please feel free to address your correspondence to the Decorum. I'm going to leave all my social media sites on my Spreaker page, including both my email addresses. All right? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.